Hello, everybody. It's Jonathan Rose. Welcome to, what is this? Oh, I know what this is. This is our monthly Swinging for the Fences options class that we have at the last Wednesday of every month. We had this class last week. Great class, a lot of fun. I forgot to record the darn thing, so I owe you guys another one, especially for all the people that weren't able to attend. So that's what this is. This is the monthly Swinging for the Fences options training. We do this every single month for anybody in the Swinging for the Fences program. And for this one, I invited everybody. Welcome. Can you guys hear me okay? Can you see my screen okay? Everything look good? Yes, yes, yes. Awesome. Thank you. Great audience today, guys. I appreciate everybody coming out. So I just threw this up here. My YouTube channel, I try to add as much value as I possibly can. So if you guys have any idea of topics that you want me to cover, send me a note, support@activedaytrader. I'm all ears, but 60-minute futures class. This is an hour options class. So subscribe to the channel. I put the link in the chat, and that way you'll get a notification every time a new video comes up. But again, I don't know, a lot of the content I've seen out there, guys, this is better than most of the paid content that I've seen teaching options, at least. Okay, enough of that. Let me read a quick risk disclaimer, and let's get into the fun stuff. Okie dokie, trading or investing carries a high level of risk, and it's not suitable for all persons. Before deciding to trade or invest, you should carefully consider your investment objectives, your level of experience, and your ability to tolerate risk. So as we know, these are educational presentations. Whenever I talk about specific trades, it's just where I see value in the market. Please don't take it as a trade recommendation to any one person. Okay, see you later. Okay, so I was kind of thinking of what topic to discuss today. And it's always across the board between people wanting education versus those who want trade ideas. And I spend my day researching. I'm always looking for opportunity because I trade for a living. That's what I do. That's what I love. I love the hunt. And one of the stories that I'm following very, very closely right now is what's going on in Brazil. And in my coaching community, which I'll pull up, that's one of the topics that we're researching and we're looking at. And so how it works is whenever I have any ideas, I'm always going to throw them in the coaching community first, because I have kind of a team of people that will help research these ideas. Kind of selfish, I know, but it works. So I thought it would be cool to take one of those ideas and research them together. So you guys can see, well, we can have lots of benefits. The benefits would be here, Brazil. Brazil's getting wacky. We need to be long volatility. I'm on the hunt. So I thought this would be a cool class topic because, for one, you guys can see the whole process that I go through when I'm looking for trades. And the other benefit is you guys can walk away with what I think is going to be a darn good trade idea. Okay? So that's what I'm thinking. Hopefully you guys are cool with it. I will leave up the questions throughout the presentation as well. And then we can get to it. One more thing to cover. Oh, cool. You guys like that idea. Awesome. Fun, fun, fun. Dennis, I did see that. Dennis is mentioning an old stock that we used to cover was up today. What was I doing on here? Oh, so for those of you who are not part of the membership, just want to explain what I do with these trades. So these are the trades that I share every week. Every Sunday, I wake up like at 5 in the morning just because I'm not a good sleeper. And I research these trades. And what I always want to do is when I'm finding trades, I always want a why. I always want like, what's the reason that we're in a certain trade? So that's always very important to me. So the Brazil idea that we're going to explore right now, I assume that we'll find something that we like. Maybe we don't, but I probably will. And then those trades will just be one trade on the spreadsheet. So you'll see we'll probably take 30, 40 minutes just trying to find one trade. And that's just, 1/12 of the spreadsheet that I share every single week. So hopefully that puts it in perspective. Okay. All right. So what's going on in Brazil is a strong dollar is just annihilating them. I mean, they're having a really, really difficult time. And here is just the US dollar against the real. Do we have anybody on here from Brazil? Government intervention, artificial, and then the natural market takes it over. And this is just the US dollar against the Brazilian real. But yeah, there's the US dollar against the real. Just getting absolutely annihilated. And so if we start looking at Brazilian ETFs, say the ILF is going to be one of them. This will give you a little perspective on what's going on. Okay, well, this is iShares Latin America. EWZ, here we go. So there's Brazil. Okay. I always like to just put on a 100 and 200 period moving average. So right now I'm just kind of setting the table, kind of making a case to you guys of why I like the stock or why I like the name. And when I say the name, I just mean Brazil in general. And I'm going to be a little bit different than probably how you approach the markets or how you've learned, because when I start looking at Brazil, I'm not looking at Brazil thinking that I'm bullish or that I'm bearish. I'm looking at it as this is a story, that, quote, I got to make sure I'm recording this, by the way, because or else I'm going to do another one of these next week and that's going to get tiring. So let me just make sure. Okay. So I am recording. So when I say Brazil, to me, what generates a trade idea is uncertainty. I'm a big believer that picking direction, whether something goes up or down, is kind of a coin flip. And, it's tough. How are you a trader and think that picking direction is coin flip? I thought you traders are supposed to have great feel. Well, I don't. I think that there's no such thing really as feel. I think betting for something to go up or down is kind of binary. And what I'm really good at and what has paid the bills for me over the years is I'm very, very good at finding movement, whether it's undervalued or overvalued, and that's trading volatility. And so I wouldn't say most, every option trader that I know, so literally every single option trader that I know doesn't trade direction, they trade volatility. Now, the reason right now there's uncertainty in Brazil, and right here I have you on a weekly, and we look at a Brazil ETF, it was a high of 48, got down to 34, right by its 200 period moving average. I'm also a big believer that markets do not like to stay around big numbers. You can see the last time it got to its 200, failed. It messed around here for a while until it exploded higher. So right now, I think the market's very uneasy about Brazil, so it's having a very difficult time finding good value. So what I want to do is I want to dig into this space, and I want to look at all the public companies that have liquidity that we can trade, and try to find out of those companies that are in Brazil that are traded in the US, which ones have been sold, which one have sold up too hard, which ones haven't sold off enough. Because when it comes down to it, they're all correlated, right? They're all correlated because they're Brazilian stocks. Now, the second layer is they have their differences because they're different companies, but they're heavily exposed to Brazil. It's just like if you're looking at oil drillers. Overall, they're all correlated, but if you want to dig in the next level, yes, there are some differences between them, but they are all going to be to some degree correlated to the price of oil. So what I do, so does that make, let me just stop here. Does that make sense of why I'm looking for opportunity in Brazil? There's uncertainty. It's moving. When markets start moving really fast, like you can see on a weekly, it's gapping right by its 200 period moving average. That's what we want. When markets start moving fast, they have a more difficult time valuing themselves, correctly than when markets are slow and efficient. So that's why, a name like Apple or Microsoft, those are the most perfectly valued stocks in the world. There's no edge. There's no opportunity for me to go and trade Apple, right? Because I'm going to go in there. What am I going to wrestle Goldman Sachs? I don't have any edge over Goldman Sachs. But as traders, if we can be a little creative and look at places where people aren't, that's where I strongly feel that we can really find opportunity. So let me show you the process. Just looking at some questions, guys. If questions are coming in right now that aren't really about, Brazil, I'm probably going to skip over them just because it's going to ruin my train of thought, and I think it's going to take away from the presentation. But Chris, this is exactly it. A lot of these companies are feeling the heat from a really strong dollar. We also, not to get political, but we have a president that is extremely unpredictable, right? He's doing things that, we just haven't seen before, which is just adding uncertainty. So what we're really feeling, and Brazil's feeling the brunt of it, and I was looking at India as well. I think there's some really good opportunity in India, but the benefit, the great thing about Brazil for us is there's a lot of these ADRs, American Depository Receipts, that trade in the US. And what an ADR is just a Brazilian company that issues shares in the US to trade. That's what an American Depository Receipt is. So those shares can be traded in US dollars. For us, it's just like trading a stock. It doesn't really matter that you're trading what's called an ADR, right? So here's what I do. And I'm going to share with you one of my favorite sites in the world. Once I find it. Dennis, what's up, buddy? So Dennis, we're researching Brazil today, buddy. Brazil. Okay. Okay. So Impactopia. It looks like this. Impactopia. I'll put it in the chat for you guys. Everybody bookmark it. It's awesome. I'll show you how to use it. Very, very powerful. You You go on webinars and people are selling correlation tools. Well, this is free and it's better than any correlation tool you'll find. Impactopia is very simple. It does two things. It shows us correlations. So if I look at Brazil, EWZ, iShares, MSI Brazil, click. What it's now going to show me is I'll open it up. 20 correlations. So the 20 most correlated names, and then the 20 least correlated names, or 20 names with a negative correlation. So, oh, what's up, Rudy? Here, and we'll get to it. We'll get to it. So let's ignore this side because we're not really looking for negative correlations right now. But we are looking for positive correlations. Now we have an option to include ETFs or exclude ETFs. Now, it's kind of cool because you can see, if I put in USO and we include ETFs, you'll see that all these companies are putting out the exact same product. And that's why they're all correlated, 99%, 99, 99, 97, 96. It's the same thing, right? Some of them are 2 times or 3 times, but Barclays has them, ProShares has them, PowerShares has them, iShares has it. This is just oil. Let's go back to EWZ. What I'm going to do is exclude ETFs. And we can look at correlations here, or it also has this tree view feature. And the tree view feature, I don't really use. Some of my clients do use it. I just personally don't love it, but it shows you EWZ and it tries to show how it's connected. So play around with it, see if it works for you. I don't use the tree view, but I know some people do. Let's go back to the correlations. EWZ, we're excluding ETFs. Now, a correlation of 1 is the exact same thing. So EWZ and, I don't know, another ETF with the same exact stuff in it as EWZ is a correlation of 1 or 100. It's 1 actually. BBD has a 90.9% correlation. I didn't know I can click on this. I don't think I can. iTub's got a 90%, PBR's got an 87%, and so forth. Now, when I'm looking at correlations, I really want to be over 70%. You don't really want to get down to companies that have a 60% correlation or 57% correlation. They're not really this, right? They're different. They're totally different. But if you're looking at something, EWZ, and you're looking against PBR, and it's got an 87.7% correlation, that's cool. And I'll show you why, but that's what we're looking for. So the other things that I look at using this site is average daily vol. So average daily vol right now, it's saying for EWZ is 1.74. So when you're doing analysis, you do want to make sure that the average daily vol is kind of close, because you don't want to trade 3.28 against 1.74. And if you did that, you would have to do a better weighting on that name, because if you did a trade EBR against EWZ and the vol is 3.28 versus 1.74, well, that's almost double, right? So what you would need to do is, in order to make it somewhat neutral, you would have to put a factor in there, and you'd have to do more EWZ against EBR. We want to avoid that. So let's avoid that. So now what I do is I'll take these names. Let me see if I'll just make this a little smaller, so I want to be able to keep this up here so you guys can see it. Does that present okay if I do that? Does that look okay for you guys? Good. Good, good, good. Okay. So in Thinkorswim, they got the beaker. Any platform you can do this, by the way. And then I'm just going to go down to correlations or comparison. I'm going to throw 3 of them on there. I'm going to hit this little dial, cog. And let's start searching. BBD. iTub. PBR. This is a trade that I look at all the time. Looking at these, this is a place where I'm always looking for correlations. Let me just change the color. Obviously, we can't have 2 pinks. That's going to be tough to figure out. So now that we have a couple of names, and I'll cover this for a little bit just to open it up, and then we'll play around some others. Here's what it looks like. Do we have 4 names? 1, 2, oh, we have 4 names, sorry. So PBR is in the yellow, and you can see the others. Now, when you do any kind of analysis like this, the most important thing, or one of the important things that you need to do, is you need to show price as a percentage, because we're looking to normalize everything. And by normalizing everything, what I mean is BBD is a $10 stock and EWZ is a $40 stock. So if we look at it based upon percentages, it's the same thing. The other way we can do it is EWZ is a $40 stock, BBD is a $10 stock. We can do BBD times 4 to make it the same price, but I don't want to do that. That doesn't seem like that's a good play. John, good question. We'll get there. So before I go look at the vols, guys, and this is just, John just asked a question, PBR's vol is considerably higher. I don't want this to hold me back yet. I want to start doing the analysis and then I'll look at that. But what's pretty amazing, just by looking at this, is how expensive PBR was relative to the others, right? So all throughout this time period, they're kind of moving in lockstep. It looks like the pink, we'll just use colors right now to talk. You know, the pink got expensive to the other colors. It came back, right? Fine, fine. But look how extended PBR got relative to the rest of the group. Really, really expensive, right? It looked like even the white kind of broke correlation to the pink and to the blue. So obviously, I wish we were looking at it at this standpoint right here, because right here you can even see that as PBR was going kind of flat, these already started to fall. And obviously, looking back on it, right? Everybody is, what's that saying? 2020 in the rear view mirror. That's probably not what everybody says, but hindsight is 2020. That's what I was looking for. But but you guys see this? Notice how tightly correlated. So we look at these, they have a 90% correlation. Oh yeah, 88, 90, 90. And look how those dropped well before PBR. And then obviously PBR gets annihilated. It comes right back down to these other two. Now that's all well and good if it was mid-May, but it's not. But what I like to do is, if you saw my screen, I have like 20 charts just like this, where I just keep up, where I'm always looking, because the big benefit that we have as retail traders, which is not so easy for traders to figure out, is that we don't have to trade. We don't have to do anything. We could sit around and wait and play snipers and just wait for those really special trades to present. So yeah, really special trade right here. But again, it's not May 15th. What we want to find is, where can we find value right now? So let me clear these lines. And now what I'm going to do is, the light blue is iTub, and BBD is pink. EWZ is going to be white. Stop doing that, dude. Do you guys fight with your computer all day? So what I want to do is, I want to take off iTub, and I just want to keep up PBR and EWZ. That's what I want to do right now. And then the other two, iTub and EWZ, they're pretty much trading the same. And so I'm going to take those off. And so what I'll do here is, I'll switch this to BBD. I'll take off BBD here. Let's switch it for UGP, the next one on the list, right? UGP. Okay, apply. And then iTub was the other one that we're going to kick out. And let's see what this looks like. Whenever I'm looking at charts, I want the most amount of data first. Okay. Dennis Lopez, Apex client. Jumping the gun, getting excited. So now what do we have? We go back to 2015 again. We have 3 Brazilian names that are extremely tightly correlated, right? The pink got expensive to the yellow. Here they're right back to value. Again, they broke apart. They get back to value. They're kind of trading the same thing. And still, UGP is down 40% going back to the starting point, and PBR is 10%. So now what we can do is, EWZ, we've already kicked off the boat, right? So what about if we use BBD? Now we're looking at BBD against PBR. There's an 82% correlation. We're losing a little bit of the correlation. We're not at the 90% correlation. I really don't think that we should go under 80%, because we don't need to, right? Now, of course, we have to look at the options to see if they're tradable. PBR is definitely got great options. Good liquidity, as much as you want. There you go, Dennis. You can do a $3 call spread for a penny. Oh, $4 call spread for a penny. Nine days. So we have PBR, and then what do we have? BBD was the other one? No, it wasn't BBD. It was sorry. It was UGP. Just answer a few questions. So Sue, what I'm looking at right now is I'm looking at these as Brazil. Don't look at these as other companies. Look at them as Brazil. And if they're an 80% correlation or 82% correlation, a major part of their correlation is the country that they're from. It is Brazil. So one's down 40%, one's up 10%. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for what's inexpensive, what's expensive relative to one another. This is on a daily, a shorter time period. Oh wow! And look how it corrects itself fast. So if you go back and look at these charts, you can see when it's off, it will correct itself fast. It's just a matter of finding the right trades to be in. Charles is saying, is using 80% correlation a general rule? Yeah, I guess. Maybe 75%. Depends. But yeah, I wouldn't go under, much under 75%, 73%, I guess. Let me look at this UGP now, because this stock I'm not that familiar with. I'm afraid the options aren't going to be that great. And the options are not that great. Okay. UGP is raining on our parade. All right. Well, UGP, we're going to end up kicking out because we can't really trade that guy. It does seem like PBR is still the most expensive that we found. So using that as the trigger. Here's another great thing to do. If we went to another great site, ETF channel. By the way, guys, I think something to think about is, are you doing this much work when you look for a trade? Like, this is the kind of analysis that needs to go into finding trade opportunity. So if you go to ETF channel and then go to ETF finder, I'll throw this in the chat for you. You guys are getting the things I put in chat. That's cool. That's okay. And then what we can do here is UGP, right? Oh, I keep forgetting that one. UGP, EBR, CPL. So you can always just grab stocks, a whole bunch of stocks that you like through this site, and then find ETF. And then it's going to show you, because we know those are correlated, right? It'll show you the ETFs that hold these names, and then the percentage of the ETF that holds that. So what is that, ILF? So then I'll go ILF. That's not bad. Now we want to get lucky. Come on, give us a good trade. I mean, BBD is clearly the cheapest. BBD. And by the way, so this story needs a little time to develop. This is not something that's going to work in 2 days. It may, but you can't expect it to. You'd want to give it some time. These are really freaking cheap. These are really, really inexpensive. So then the next thing that I would do is I like, here, let me get this back up. I definitely like BBD, being the cheapest of the bunch. PBR, you can just see the volatility that it has. And so I would put, I would put on a trade like that, and you end up holding it for a while, but you could trade around it. So BBD, if we went out to September and you buy, I don't know, 10 of these as an example, and say it's $400 to buy 10 of them. Well, if it rallies a little bit and you can sell them, for 60 cents or 65 cents, that's when you sell 5 out. And then if it goes back down, you put a bid and you buy. Dennis, I see you. 9 calls, Dennis, I don't like as much. I think you're getting a little too far away. So whenever you trade cheap stocks, or a trick that I do whenever I trade $7.38 stocks, pretend it's a $73 stock, because then you're buying the $90 call on a $73 stock. That's a 20% move. That's a pretty good move, right? If we do this, if we look at it like this, and let me just take these off and put those moving averages back on. What we really want, which would be the next step, which I won't do while we're live because that will just put you guys to sleep, is we need to research Brazil and find the catalyst. So I know they just had an election that was supposedly like the most rigged election ever, but are they reviewing the election? Or is there any date going forward that might be a catalyst for uncertainty? I mean, you could always just go the next time they release like a major economic report. But if you look at even in April, so if we look here, May, guys, 1 month ago, this thing was trading $10. So maybe 9, honestly, is not too far away. This is so freaking cheap. These right here are so unbelievably inexpensive with how much this thing is moving. It baffles me. And then what you could do is you take the most expensive one, and you'd want to go in the same expiration. You can do a couple of different things. What I kind of like doing is selling upside calls you can do. What I like doing, yeah, selling upside calls, or you could buy puts. I don't know if I'd want to buy puts here. I kind of like selling the upside calls. I mean, you can almost do this trade for nothing, right? You can buy those for 39 cents and sell these for 33 cents. They're correlated, what, 0.82%. Dennis, thank you, bud. So what Dennis and I are doing on here, guys, this is what we do in Apex. We just sit here and research together, looking for opportunity. What Dennis just shared, and I'll share it with everybody once I pull the darn thing up. I think I have the slowest computer in the world. I don't know if that's possible, but I think I do. So he just sent me the Brazil calendar so we can try to find some major dates. The reason we're trying to do this is for a catalyst. Actually, more so what we'd want but now we're talking. That's in October. That means we got to go further out because we want, I mean, the elections is where we're really going to get vol. I would go further out. It's not that much more money. You know, for 8 cents, they're going to give us 30 more days and include the election. But Dennis, PBR, I wouldn't go long calls PBR because PBR is expensive relative to BBD. Okay, try not to get caught up in something that's so beaten up. It's so beaten up because it was very expensive relative to the other names anyway. Well, so Julie's saying why sell upside calls rather than buying puts? Because if you're and you could buy puts. I just think that if you're buying puts, you really need volatility to go higher because you're getting long volatility in BBD and getting long volatility in PBR rather than getting long volatility in BBD and getting short volatility. So it's kind of a vol neutral trade. But the thinking would be even if Brazil's up 50%, you're going to lose a lot on those short calls, but you should offset yourself with those BBD calls. Or PBR doesn't do anything and BBD just catches up. And if BBD just catches up, it trades back to you know, mid 9s, 10. And that's why there's so much volatility right now, Chris. And two, you know, it's a bank. You know, it's right in the thick of the volatility. So that's what I like doing that analysis in front of you. And again, that was, you know, 45 minutes of just looking at one trade. And you could dig deeper and keep on doing this, play around with some of the other names, maybe try some of the other ETFs, and you can find, you know, maybe a little diamond in the rough. CBD to CBD have, I mean, and then you can get really creative. Now, and then you can get really creative and tie it into, you know, the commodity markets, because, you know, Brazil is so heavily influenced by commodities. So there's a lot of different directions that you can go in. The key, let me just get some questions. The key, guys, is just dig deeper. Every time you risk money, think of it like your you know, like your buddy come over and pitched you an investment, and you're going to sit there and, hey, do I want to invest in this idea? Like you think about that kind of investment a lot longer than you think about whether I should buy Apple or sell Apple or do an iron condor or something like that. I just want to answer a few questions, guys, and I'll share the questions coming in right now. Yeah, so Chris, we talked about that. They're cutting rates, banks, volatility, get long calls. I really like getting long calls, BBD. In terms of correlation, do you also look at industry correlation? So Jen, great question. PBR is oil. They may correlate more to oil than Brazil. Well, so what you'll notice too is I didn't pick PBR, right? I found PBR by looking in Brazil. So that might be very true, but again, I didn't choose PBR, kind of PBR chose us. Jen, does that make sense? You know what I mean? We didn't just find Brazilian companies. We did a correlation analysis to tell us mathematically what was trading the most correlated. And then too, if you'll notice, if you're going to do PBR as well, you don't need as much PBR as you do BBD. So for instance, you might want to do 10 calls to 7 puts, or if you're selling calls in PBR, 7, because you have more volatility in PBR. BBD, if we go out to October, 45% volatility. And you can see PBR is 54%. %. So it's a little more volatile stock. So always take note of that, because if you're looking, and again, oh cool, Jen, happy, good. Yeah, Dan, it's terrible. Although in Chicago, everybody loves PBR. Chris, that's insane. 2 years ago, the interest rates was 14.25%, and now it's 6.5%. The cool thing too about this whole exercise that we just went through is you can do this with anything, any industry that has a high correlation, right? So solar stocks. You know, if we look at Fissler, we'll see that they're not highly correlated. Great example, Jonathan. If we look at oil, here's a great place where you can find highly correlated stocks. These are going to be all the ETFs. Fracking stocks. I mean, I'll do this where I'll just go through industries and look for really, really highly correlated names. Banks are highly correlated. Oil is obviously, you know, commodity driven, very, very highly correlated. solar. Now, for something like solar, for these guys, I would include the 70s and 73, but for Brazil, you don't have to because we have the option of the 90% correlation or the 85% correlation. So, you know what I mean? So for these, maybe I would go a little bit lower. Maybe I would even go down to SOL. That's a terrible name for a ticker. Not surprising. Should have just sold it on the ticker name. This guy's SOL. Okay, so play around with that. So whenever I find a stock that I like, I'm always going to challenge myself to find something inexpensive to the stock that I like. It's like if I like gold, and if I think gold's going higher, I look at, correlated instruments. Gold's a great one. Gold miners, right? Silver miners. Look at the silver. I mean, have a blast. Like, this is where we should spend our time, not staring at the market. Oh, Alex, I think I missed your question. This was Brazil. How did you find the subject for research? So I found the subject for Brazil because I'm a reader. Like, I'm just one of these guys who reads a lot. And right now, the dollar is rallying and the Brazilian real is just getting annihilated relative to the dollar. So then I started looking at the movement, and let me take it off percentage. And then you can just see it's moving, it's fast. Something where especially retail traders make a mistake, and a lot of these gurus make a mistake, is you don't want to buy volatility when it's low. You don't want to sell volatility when it's high. What you want to do is you want to find what's in play, what's really moving around, and then find value within that. And so you kind of want to buy vol when it's expensive. You want to buy options in what's moving. The worst thing that we can do as traders is buy buy options, buy a straddle, buy a strangle on something that's just stuck in the mud and it's not moving at all. Right? It's just gonna leak premium. It's just gonna lose value. So important to make sure. And one of the names right now that we're long, that's doing well for us is PTLA, PTLA, which pulled back, got up to 45.6. But I know some members were buying the 45s for 25 cents, and those got up to $1.50 today. Look how this thing moves. It moves a ton. It moved because the CEO left. Supposedly, the CEO leaving is going to open the door for mergers. That's the whole speculation about PTLA is they have two awesome drugs that got approved, and so they're a candidate to be bought. And they rallied on the drug approval, didn't really do anything, and we're out at ASCO in California, the major conference, and the CEO announced his departure. There's speculation that with the CEO announcing his departure, it's because they're going to get bought. Hey, Jim. Jim's just saying, what do you look for to see if there's good options to trade? Just go to the options and see. Make sure there's tradable markets. Like, these are obviously awesome. 47 cents at 49 cents. You just want to make sure there's a market. It's unbelievable how liquid this thing is. 30 million shares. Well, Steve was saying, what about long BBD and using a negative correlation against it? Steve, that's not something I've played around with. So no for me, but look into it. It's kind of tricky though, because you wouldn't want to do a negative correlation against it, right? In order to hedge, you'd have to do a negative correlation the same way. You might be overcomplicating it though. So here, Dennis is sharing what he does, and he's been with me for a couple of years now. What I did in the past was look at the ETF holdings of GDX, and then I researched each stock's earnings one at a time. Same time as GDX. By the way, I do that a lot as well, where I'll take an ETF. I do that a lot because I like trading closed-end funds. There you go. I'll give you a little closed-end fund love. So I'm not going to go into a whole lesson on closed-end funds, but they're a really good trade. And one of the trades that I really like to do is, if you look, I'm going to CEF Connect. Here, I'll throw that in the chat. I used to do a course on closed-end funds, but honestly, I couldn't keep up with the questions, so I stopped teaching it. Sorry, that was full disclosure right there. So closed-end fund Connect, if you look at the portfolio, they'll tell you exactly what's in them. And if you take the first, like the top 5, it makes up like 40% of the overall portfolio. So then I would take each of these names and put them in ETF Connect, ETF channel, and find highly correlated stocks to the closed-end funds. Awesome trade. A little labor intensive, but a very, very, very good trade. What's up, Chris? Let me near up. Just want to share all the questions, and then I'll answer these questions. So based on your view of gold as an example, you look for options on stocks rather than options on gold futures. Chris, I naturally go to options on stock because it's what I know best. It also gives me the most flexibility. I can go to gold futures, but I can only look at options on gold futures. If I go to stocks, I can look at hundreds of different stocks that are correlated to gold. Michael, what's up, Michael? Do risk reversals or calendars fit into this criteria, or strictly buying calls best bet? No, you can. It's overall bullish BBD, relatively bearish PBR. So trading is all about how to most efficiently express your opinion. So if you feel more comfortably doing a risk wrap or a vertical or whatever, again, it's just the most efficient way to express your opinion. Oh, James, great trade, buddy. You did that? Did you do the 45.50 call spread for 0? That's an insane trade. Jim, I shared your question before reading it. Dennis, I read your question before sharing it, thank goodness. So, all right, guys, so that's the process I go through. I hope you guys liked it. I was able to get a bunch of work done, which I appreciate. Kind of killed 2 birds with 1 stone, able to do some research. So again, for those who aren't members, PBR, BBD will be 1 trade that will be on the Sunday week ahead. There's 10 other ones. I do this every single week. Some people just use the service just to get the trade ideas. The service going forward, it's $147 per month, or if you want an annual, it's $997. And if anybody's interested in a lifetime, you get the savings even down even more. So whatever works for you. Thank you guys so much for coming out. I really appreciate it. I will upload the recording that I did record